Why should we be concerned about the health of our liver when it comes not only to just concern for our physiological health and well-being, but also to the manifestation of our dreams, the enactment of our purpose, our own vision for our life, and ultimately carrying that out with hopefully some sense of ease, some sense of playfulness, some sense of joy throughout the whole process. This is incredibly, incredibly relevant, and especially for anyone who struggles with addiction or has struggled with addiction in the past, and eating disorders of all kinds. So let's dive into this a little bit. This book is an incredible reference, and it's called The Five Spirits. It can be a little bit interesting to just kind of dive into if you're not familiar with Chinese medicine, which is the modality that I'll be talking about today. But even if you know nothing about it, I think you'll understand what I'm sharing here. And those of you, if you are interested in the subject, then this book, The Five Spirits by Lori Eve Dechar, is a great resource for learning more. So the liver, any organ, right, all organs in Chinese medicine are attributed not only a physiological function in the body, but also they are linked with a spiritual and energetic function as well. And I'll do my best to describe that of the liver, which I think is incredibly interesting. And all the major organs have this. So if you want to read more, again, there's a lot of literature on this topic. Now, the liver is incredibly interesting because it's associated with the eyes. So the organs are also come in these kind of pairs, and the liver and the eyes are related. Now, the liver is responsible for, it governs our ability to see. And when I say see, I'm not just talking about seeing physical 3D phenomena in our manifest world, although that's part of it, right? Vision itself, right? We were talking about the connection between the liver and the eyes. Vision itself is affected by the function of the liver. And, one thing that happens is in diabetics, for instance, right? We know that sugar is a hepatotoxin. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but you'll understand. We know that sugar is a hepatotoxin. It is a toxin for the liver. And what happens for diabetics is ultimately, if the disease gets bad enough, it's possible to lose one's vision. So there's a very direct link that we can see in medicine very clearly. But in Chinese medicine, we go a little bit further, we go a little bit deeper, and we're not just talking about the vision. Again, as we see, as I'm looking at my hand and I see the lines on my hand, or I'm looking at a sign on the road, we're also talking about the vision that can be said to happen with the third eye, or our internal vision, the imagination, the way that we envision our lives. So we see them unfolding, and in a healthy liver, a person with a healthy liver, the idea is that there's a real vision of, this is what I'm here for, and this is how my destiny is meant to unfold. Of course, we might see it in more or less detail, but there is a sense of foreseeing, FORE, foreseeing, foresight of the future, so that we can then, and this is important as well, the liver is also responsible for then coming in and strategizing how we are going to create that vision, how we are going to implement. Now, when folks have a very congested or stagnant liver, what can happen is there's a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos, and really a sense of being lost, a sense of not having a direction. Maybe those of us who have experienced that, I know I certainly have, can point to times in our lives where maybe we had many different kinds of jobs that were not related, and we were just feeling like, what am I doing here? Maybe I want to be an artist, or maybe I want to, whatever, something else. Maybe I want to do this. Maybe I want to do that. Maybe I'm going to raise a family. Maybe I'm going to, be a landscaper. There's just this feeling of maybe this, maybe that, but I don't really have a clarity or a pull in any single direction. Now, this goes deeper when you talk about the spirits that are associated with the different organs. And this, might or might not resonate for you, but there's a spiritual and energetic force that's associated with each organ. And for the liver, that force is a force that gives us that vision, gifts us that vision. And when the liver is stagnant, it's said that it becomes not a welcoming place for these spirits. I believe they're called the Hun. And so how do we get to that place of a congested liver? How do we get to that place of not being a welcoming place, we could say, for those visionary spirits that guide us? Or we could just look at it from a more physiological point of view and say, how do we get to that place where the liver isn't functioning optimally? So one very interesting way that the liver gets compromised is through very disruptive emotions such as violence. And so those of us who grew up maybe in more violent homes, or homes where there was abuse, drug abuse, or abuse of the child, we might have such erratic, disruptive emotions that the liver begins to stagnate and not function properly. The energy doesn't flow properly. The other thing that can happen is the liver is very much associated with the blood. So if we are not building our blood and nourishing ourselves properly through proper nutrition, then the liver becomes deficient. We're just not feeding it properly. And of course, some of the ways that this happens are through eating disorders such as anorexia or purging. There is also a direct connection to binge eating and food addiction, which I'm very passionate about, obviously because of my own history. But one thing that can happen is that if we're addicted to food and we're eating sugar and carbohydrates, which from my experience, most binge eaters, most food addicts do end up either eating sugar or just eating so much quantity that the blood sugar is affected. Then the liver can become stagnant, the liver can become congested, and as we said before, sugar is a hepatotoxin. So it does chronically affect the liver, especially the more that we eat, the more sugar we eat, especially at once, the more of an impact, the more of a hit on the liver it is. So the liver really does best with a balanced diet and regular intervals between meals. So we know that for food addicts, for binge eaters, there's a lot of chaos around food, around meal times, around when and how much and how and what we eat. And the other thing that the liver really likes is regularity in general, is structure. So we know, those of us who have just played with what works for us, what helps us to feel better, what helps us to maybe get that sense of vision back, maybe get that sense of being able to organize our lives back. One thing that really helps is some kind of a schedule, some kind of an organization around food, can be a cornerstone, a keystone for so many people, a keystone habit, we might call it, around which our lives can start to organize. And that does the double job of also physically, physiologically feeding our livers in a way that is, nourishing. There are many other ways. I mean, we can have a morning practice. We can have an evening practice. We know that in the world of coaching right now, morning practices have been, a huge topic of conversation. What's the best morning practice? How long? And, in some ways, I've come to believe that really one of the most important things is just that you have a morning practice at all, even if it's 5 minutes, but that regularity is something that the hun, the spirits of of vision, of the liver, of imagination, that they then start to feel safe. They then start to feel comfortable to be invited into our sphere and help us help guide our lives, help us steer on this journey. So what else? I wanted to talk just briefly about dreams, about dreaming, and about how, when we do start to balance our liver, we might start to experience our dreams more. We might start to experience both waking and, when we're physically asleep in REM sleep, we might start to experience visions that actually give us a message that we can wake up. There are cultures in the Amazon and maybe, all over the world that I don't know about, but I do know about cultures in the Amazon that are built, indigenous cultures, around dreaming and around this idea that our dreams are not random. They're given to us. They're given to us as guides. And actually, the wise thing that we can do is record them in some way, whether we wake up and journal or, usually best if you don't do anything else, but just get out of bed. Sometimes I do this in the middle of the night. I just roll over, grab my notebook and write down whatever I dreamt of. Or, you might tape record it on your phone or whatever it is. Or even if it's just repeating it back to yourself or telling a friend or a partner or someone in the morning what you dreamt of can help you to reflect on it. Use it in your meditation, use it in your contemplation. And so that those dreams, they're not wasted. We actually use them as fodder on our path. We use them as guidance, which so many of the ancient cultures honored, that our dreams were forms of guidance. I know that, for instance, I'm not, I'm not making a claim here. I'm just exploring. Maybe, we can just explore this. But I know that, for instance, with marijuana use, dreaming can go away. And, with regular use, many people report that they stop dreaming, and then when they stop using marijuana, their dreams come back. That's something to think about. I have heard that the liver can be impacted by the use of cannabis, and I just don't know the answer to that. But it's interesting. I think that the dreams, for some, sometimes go away. So these are just some thoughts. And from my own personal experience, I've seen over and over and over again, too many times to discount, when folks take the sugar out of their diet. And here I'm also including like flour products, high carbohydrate products, and things that turn into sugar quickly in our bloodstream. That when folks do that, a sense of power just comes into their lives. And it's something that I cannot ignore, the connection between those two things. And I'm not the only coach who talks about this. This is a really interesting phenomenon. So if you want to try it, one thing that you can start to just link for yourself, if you are somebody that uses sugar, or if you're somebody that experiences this sense of lostness or confusion or haziness or vagueness, just to know that life can have a lot of clarity to it. There can be a lot of clarity about destiny. There can be a lot of clarity about what steps need to be taken to get there. And there can be a sense of ease around that. I mean, in Ayurveda, there's a saying, do nothing, accomplish everything. And this really points to that effortless effort. When we have the vision, when we're clear, when we're guided, when we're aligned with ourselves, then life unfolds with ease. And we're not pushing, we're not forcing. And so that is available. And if you start to link for yourself that if you cleanse your liver, you can really start to experience some of these benefits, then that can really empower you. Some other things that can really help cleanse the liver are dandelion tea, milk thistle tea. Just make sure there aren't any other additives, but just those plants, and that they're organic, and any whatever your other values might be, you around getting the best herbs. You might know more than I do, but those are some really great plants that can help cleanse the liver. And the other thing, that if there's any drug use in our history, if there's any alcohol in our history, then it could really be worth it to do some cleansing, take some cleansing measures, take some cleansing protocols. And remember that, it's not just about doing a cleanse and then going back to our old lifestyle. I mean, maybe that's how we need to start. And I know that I can sound extremist sometimes, but really at the end of the day, if we always do what we always did, we'll always get what we've always gotten, right? I mean, it's just the truth. And if we can just make small changes, but keep them going, keep the ball rolling, and add on to those changes and keep improving how we're treating our bodies, then we're going to see results on all levels. We're going to see results on how much oomph, how much joy, how much just zeal and zest we wake up with every day, how we approach our purpose, whether it's with joy and enthusiasm or not. We're going to see those results on all levels. It's absolutely all connected. And I wish for you to discover the possibilities of having a clean, healthy liver. Another beautiful possibility is to go to your acupuncturist or find an acupuncturist in your area that has great reviews, that's experienced, and ask them to tonify your liver. Just take a look at least and see what's going on in there for you. Okay, so that's all for today, and I'll see you next time. Take good care.